Good afternoon. I'm Laurence Sanford, Senior Analyst with the American Security Council Foundation with our Peace Through Strength podcast. And today we have a wonderful guest who's going to talk about the Kurds and the Iranians and whatever else she wants to talk about. Her name is Shukriya Bradost. She is a Kurdish Iranian who left Iran 15, 20 years ago because of persecution of the Kurds and in particular the women uprising in Iran. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Laurence. And I'm happy here to answer the question you have or the audience have any questions.
Okay, so you're presently at Virginia Tech and going for your PhD, but you also travel around the country and probably the world in regards to Iran and its opposition to the ruling theology. But before we get into that, could you just give us a little bit about how you left Iran and why you left Iran? And I would note that, by the way, your name in Arab is an Arabic word, your first name, right? Which means thankful. Is there a Kurdish?
That's true.
In Kurdistan, is that your, do you use the Arabic name in Kurdistan or do you have a Kurdish first name?
Thank you. That's a great question. It's sort of a great question. My background will tell you why my name is coming from Arabic, because they weren't allowed to use Kurdish name.
Okay.
Even if you ask, I have a niece born raised in Canada, and when they tried to get Iranian passport, even Iranian embassy around the world, in Canada, their representative, before they closed in the embassy in Canada, and other places in the world, they don't allow Kurds to have a Kurdish name. My sister has to change her two kids' name from Kurdish to Farsi. So that Farsi, even not Farsi, the Arabic Farsi, to be able to earn the Iranian passport and citizenship because they had a Kurdish name. So now they're facing that kind of the weird situation. They naming Kurdish like it's Berivan Diyar. In Iranian passport is Farzin and Roya. So totally different names. So that tells you my name and other Kurdish situation tells you the situation we've been facing that since we born in Iran and been part of Iran as a citizen or as a people from that part of the world. But about my background, it's important. My background coming from the Kurdish background. I have to talk about Kurds when I'm talking about my background, because I grew up being a Kurd in Iran under Islamic regime. I born raised there. I got my first diploma in science in Iran. So why I'm telling you this background, because to tell you when I born there, I felt this discrimination. My identity, my ethnicity was a security issue for Iran.
Yes.
When we're talking about Iran militia group, Iran missile program, Iran's all these act in the region, this rising act in the region. When you go back to the 1979, when the first Islamic regime came to the power, it's interesting when you see where Islamic regime first time used militia group. The first time Islamic regime used militia group where it was in Kurdistan region of Iran. When IRGC first formed, before IRGC, there was 7 militia groups under different names like Jabhat al-Islami, Shafaq. There are 7 names. Then they created IRGC, volunteer forces, militia group to attack where? Kurdish region of Iran. So that's how everything started inside Iran. Then it went abroad and outside Iran. But when Iranian regime were attacking Kurd in Kurdish region, world was silent. Everybody was looking and hoping that this new regime in Iran would be ally with them, which we saw after they got control of all the country and become stronger. They start showing their real face, that they want to attack, they want to destroy America, they want to destroy the world order. So my background tells you, when I grew up in that land, the Kurdish region of Iran, I already had a family, friends, and environment being securitized, militarized, and I grew up being in politics and defending my right. That's how when I was just 16, 17 years old, me and my friend, we established the Women Life Freedoms Committee in Urmia, Kurdish city in the north west of Iran. And before, we were just in the last year of the high school. My name went to the Iran's blacklist because we were doing something against what they are trying to do, silence us. So that's how the base of being active in this field, in the politics, and pushing for the right, not just for the Kurd, for the women and for the other ethnic group. And even you said as a Muslim, I'm a Sunni Muslim, so Iran is a majority Shia. So it's so interesting when Iranian protecting or pretending to care about the Muslim or Islam in Palestine or other world. Maybe your audience needs to know that Iran, as an Islamic country, is the only country that its capital doesn't have a Sunni mosque. The only capital in the world that doesn't allow Sunni Muslim to have a mosque is Iran. So you can see how the level of the hypocrisy of this regime. So as a Sunni, we grow up to not Kurd, not woman, not Sunni, all these three discrimination make me the way I am today to fight for this right for the people inside of Iran.
So when you fled Iran, you fled through the mountains. Were you by yourself, or were you with family or friends, or how did you escape? And I assume you went into Kurdistan and Syria or Iraq?
Yeah, I fled from a mountain due to the security concern. I cannot mention who I fled from Iran to Iraqi Kurdistan. So I fled from the mountain of the Kurdistan, the border between Iranian Kurdistan, the Iraqi Kurdistan. I'm not the only one. I fled Iran through this mountain way. Most of Iranian opposition, not just even Kurds, the Persian, the other part of Iran, when they want to flee the country, flee from this regime, they flee from Kurdistan mountain. Turkey is not the safe for them, so the Kurdistan mountain and Iraqi Kurdistan is the first destination they want to go. So that has been continued, unfortunately, until today.
And I know I'm going to jump around a little bit, but speaking of Turkey, I see where the Kurds have basically agreed to work with Erdogan in Turkey. What is your assessment on that particular action?
I think it's important to see where this negotiation with this peace promise will go from Turkey's side, because now the goal is in the Turkish government's side. They ask Kurds to put down the gun. They ask them to not continue the fighting. Then Kurdish political parties and the PKK, the main party of the Kurds in Turkey, they accepted that. We show the symbolic of act from them. They burn their guns. And now they're waiting for the Ankara to see what Ankara will do. Because we see for the first time the most radical nationalism party, its name is the MHP party. They came and they approached, they say, we want to have a peace in Turkey. Let's see how this peace process will end. What I'm saying is important for other Kurds in the region too. It shows if you put down your gun, there is a diplomatic and peaceful solution. If Turkey cannot process this peaceful solution and go back to the same policy that have been ruling Turkey for decades, if they go back to the same ruling process or policy, that means Kurds have to go back same again the regime by fighting. So that's important, not just for Kurds in Turkey, for Kurds in Iran too. We will see how Middle East can go through some development and change through peaceful process, not the military solution.
So do you advocate for an independent Kurdistan, or do you advocate for more autonomy of the Kurds in Turkey and Iraq and Syria and Iran? What is the position that you hold in regards to Kurdish autonomy or independence?
That's a good question, because my opinion, I do believe we have to be realistic in politics, not romantic in the politics. Real politics works based on the situation, based on the circumstance that we live in each country. I mean, Turkey, Iran, Syria, and Iraq, we have to follow and fight for our rights. For instance, in Iraqi Kurdistan, I do believe they need to be independent because they have this circumstance for independent Kurdistans. Why I put in the different scenario, because I do believe we have to have a few Kurdish states, not just one Kurdish state. We call it Great Kurdistan. because each Kurd grew up under the different society, different governing system. And then we can have a Kurdistan region of independent. We can have a Turkey with a different system that the Kurds in Turkey will vote for it. Me as a Kurd from Iran, I will vote for the system that the majority of Kurds in Iran voting for. It could be federalism system. But what we know from the Kurds in Turkey and Syria and Iran by now, yes, we hear the majority voice asking for independent Kurdistan, but the politicians who are working the politics, who know the strategy, they know how to move for the better future for the Kurds in these countries. The centralization of the government, that's the first step in Iran, Syria, and Turkey. In Iraq, I do believe we tried the federalism system, and we found that it doesn't work with the Iraqi governments, because all the policy Iraqi governments since 2005, when they approved the constitution of this country, they never applied this constitution that they voted for. You may be finding this one really funny, a really bad joke, because some politician in Iraq and the parliament member, they calling some constitution article as expired, like a constitution. That's the main problem between Kurdistan region government and the Baghdad. It's Article 140 about the Kirkuk disputed territory between Iraq and Kurdistan region. They're asking the Iraqi government, you're supposed to be the one that protect the constitution. Now you don't apply none of these articles of the constitution. The answer is, they said this article of constitution been expired. I have a law background, so that's the kind of funny joke. It's an unbelievable response. What I'm trying to say, with the Iraq and Kurdistan region government in Iraq, they tried. The Kurds tried to stay with Iraq, because 2003, when Iraq was collapsed country and Kurd was the most stable region in Iraq,
yes,
they didn't ask for independence. They didn't ask for separating Kurdistan from Iraq. They say, now we need to help Iraq rebuild Iraq as a whole, as a Kurdistan together. That's why they joined the Baghdad and they signed this constitution with the Iraqi all opposition groups. What happened? We see the result. They still trying to punish Kurdish region because it's a more stable and development region.
Yes.
Even in Syria, let's go back to the Syria to talk about Syria. If region of the Syria and Iraq, the Kurdish region always stay the most stable and secure place for all the countries, not for Iraq, not just for the Kurds, for the Iraqi people too. When ISIS attacked Iraqi people from Mosul, from different cities, they flee to Kurdish region. And they call it a safe haven. They say the Kurdistan look like different from Iraq because that's only secure and a stable place. In Syria, for more than 13 years, you can see the Kurdish region is the most stable. Till now, it's stable part of the Syria. But both sides, they never asked for separatists to be independent. They try. First, what they do, Kurds, as I say, real politics. First, they get approved. They have this policy. They approach the central government asking for decentralization, sharing power. Sharing power is the most important part. Yes. They ask for sharing power. When the government rejects their demands, now they say, okay, what is the other option? Yeah. Be independent, maybe that's the only options remaining on table.
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, after World War I, when all these countries were formed, Iraq and Syria and so forth, Lebanon, the Kurds were promised a separate country, and the Allied powers to be never fulfilled their promise to the Kurds. So it's a festering situation that's gone on for a long time. So anyways, you escaped from Iran and you worked your way eventually to England to go to college or university. And I guess I can't ask you how you got there, but how long were you in England?
Yeah, before I'm going to England, let me tell you what I did in Iraqi Kurdistan, because I lived when I fled Iranian Kurdistan 2004, I went to Iraqi Kurdistan. I started my undergrad in law school, and I was a journalist. As a reporter for the students' newspaper, I worked as a reporter. Then I become an editor on the same newspaper, a writer for the same newspaper, and then I become an editor on the same newspaper, and then I become the manager of the center that were publishing this newspaper. So it was like a progress. I did it when I was in Iraqi Kurdistan, and I was elected as all Kurdistan region government's students representative. That was the first in the history of this region and this institution. because it's Kurdistan Students Union look like a young parliament. So I become one of the head of this parliament, and I worked with them for 4 years.
Is that where you learned?
That's how I.
Excuse me. Is that where you learned English? You started to study English? Because you speak excellent.
No, thank you. That's a good question, because I always talking about the language. I say I start my first education Farsi when my mother language is English, is a Kurdish, Kermanji. Then I study I earned my first degree in Farsi. The second degree is a Kurdish and Arabic, and the third degree in English. So I was telling my friends, maybe in the future I have to have another degree in French or different language, but that's been my path.
Maybe Chinese.
You never know, but I'm happy with English. But after finishing my old work I did in Iraqi Kurdistan as an editor and manager of the Center for the Research and the Media, and then I was the one, I started the first translating academic book to Kurdish for the students, helping students not just in a university level and a high school level too. So I did that kind of activities and worked in Iraqi Kurdistan. For sure, I was writing and talking about Iran and discrimination against Kurds. So at 2006, they gave me 10 years of prison in absentia. The Iranian regime. Then I went to England to doing my master in international security. I finished international security in England, went back to Iraqi Kurdistan, got accepted as a professor, assistant professor, to start teaching in university. Then Islamic regime, 2016, they came again. They tried to kidnap me in Iraqi Kurdistan. The message was, you're going to work with us or we're going to kill you in less than 1 month. That's how I fled from my second home in Iraqi Kurdistan to the US. And that's how it started from zero and become another style of the life in US.
So since you've been in the U.S., you've been pursuing your PhD, but you also attend conferences. You're quite outspoken. I see you make a lot of podcast presentations and speeches and so forth. What's your game? What's your end game? What do you intend primarily to do at the end?
That's an amazing question. If the goal is first I fled Iran, and even I told you about my background when I started as a fighter for these rights, that me, Shukriya, when she was just 16 years old, she found that she'd been discriminated in society. I've been fighting for the same goal, to stand against Islamic regime discrimination and discriminated law and system. So I will fight for that goal until I achieve it. And even I'm not telling you that if Islamic regime collapsed, I will stop. I will follow that way to see how my people will end in the peaceful and the life that they deserve. So that's my goal, to follow and fight for it. For sure, as a human, when I'm leaving, I have other work to do. One of them teaching the university and academia and writing, talking, and through these conferences and speech, I'm trying to be the voice of the people that they didn't have the chance that I have to have a voice. Like, I grew up in the conservative society. The woman didn't have that much right based on the Islamic regime's education, the system. I become a role model for a large number of the young women, not women even, for the men. They live in Iranian Kurdistan under this undeveloped situation. When they see me as their role model to say, okay, we can be like Shukriya, we can be the people, we can talk louder and represent our people. So that's what my goal is, and I'm continuing in this love. I cannot emphasize the feeling that I have for my passion and my love for what I'm doing for my people.
Yeah, well, I personally believe that the future of modification is women, as far as the Islamic world is concerned. I think it's going to be women that are going to transform Islam into being a less militant ideology or religion. Of death to the infidel. I suspect women don't really believe that. So most of them anyway. So I'm happy to see you out there in the forefront leading the Kurdish movement, in particular the women. I couldn't agree with you more. So when are you going to get your PhD at Virginia Tech? Any idea?
It should be end by this year.
Okay.
Finger crossed.
Okay.
That's the last stage. I already have a book offer for my dissertation.
Okay.
So I'm trying to finish by this year. I already have a whole chapter done. So what needs the edit and needs my committee to approve it. So I'm almost there.
Good show. Is there any other area that you'd like to discuss? I mean, it's been very interesting as to what you're saying. It sort of conforms to what our position is here at the American Security Council. But is there any other area you'd like to discuss?
Sure. You know, there is these arguments going on about the new Middle East, new map of the Middle East, what's new map of the Middle East will look like. My comment is that without changing regime inside Iran, you cannot have this new era in the Middle East. Well, I'm saying that because if this Islamic regime with this ideology stay in power, it will get more time to rebuild itself. It's not going to change its behavior, because what is the changing behavior means for Islamic regime? It means give up on the Islamic regime, because the ideology of the regimes of destroying the world order, forcing America to withdraw from Middle East. We know Americans withdrawing from Middle East is against Americans' interests, because we're talking about the balance of power. We're talking about how Middle East is an important area for Americans. We hear it a lot during the even Arab uprising, and the Americans policymakers, they were talking about how we have to focus on the Asia side. Middle East is not important anymore. But Middle East shows every day that you have to care about the Middle East. You cannot leave this region easily, because this region, even connection with Africa is a not hot spot for the new investment and new competition in the global stage. So Middle East will always be part of the Americans' importance and Americans' foreign policy. So for staying in the Middle East, you have a regime has the most, the hugest landed in the Middle East is Iran. The empire never been collapsed, but turned to the nation state. And the Iran geopolitics situation is important for America's interest. So when the regime with this ideology that U.S. must withdraw, otherwise we will attack U.S. bases and interests in the Middle East, this regime will continue this goal. Or it says, I will destroy Israel. Israel is a part of the Americans' partner in the Middle East. And not just Israel, America, they are the case. If we don't have even America and Israel in this region, in this map, as an interest of these both countries, you will have the Iranian regime attacking the Arab countries because of the Sunni and Shia, and the Islamic ideology of Iran believes that they are the leader of Islam, they are the representative of Islam. Even you can check I'm sure you know about the speech of the Khamenei, just last year, they talking about how they attack in Saudi Arabia, that the Saudi doesn't deserve to be center of Islam.
Yes.
So that's the foundation of the regime. If they lose this foundation, they lose the regime. That's why I'm saying if this regime is staying in power in the Middle East, you would never have a new, peaceful, stable Middle East. You will have a quiet Middle East maybe for a few years or one decade until Islamic regime trying to rebuild its militia group, rebuild its defense and economy. Then we'll be back to the same page we've been.
So how do you envision a regime change in Iran? I can state that most Americans have no appetite for further regime change by a military arms of the United States. So how do we get a regime change in Iran?
You know, when we criticize Americans changing regime in Afghanistan and Iraq, we're missing one part, I do believe. The part is they didn't know well about the Iraq society or Afghanistan society. When you don't know the structure and the composition or the combination of this old society, culture, religious stuff, you will have the same end that U.S. had in these both countries, which Iraq is a different scenario. But when you read in the country very well and you get the advice from the people from this country, giving you advice how to deal with the future of this country, you will have a better option for changing regime. even the USA, we are not following the same policy that we did in Iraq and Afghanistan for the changing regime. For Iran, you don't need even to do that. You don't need to take all the US troops to inside of Iran to the change, because the Iran scenario is totally different scenario. Iran's being controlled by the minority over majority of people. Minority who has a military power. So when you change this military power, you can easily change the regime without even getting involved. And the 12 days of war Israel against Islamic regime shows this actually scenario, because when that's so interesting when you see another foreign country attacking Iran and killing the high-level commander and people celebrating that. That has to tell you what's going on inside the country. And then after the ceasefire, people weren't happy with the ceasefire. They were saying, Israel betrayed us, America betrayed us. Why you stop this war that when the goal was killing Khamenei and eliminate him and changing the regime? So it tells you the society and the government are totally separated and they are different from each other. And this connection that the history of having government, having a state is a relation between state and population. So this connection, this link between state and society being caught that as an outcome of Islamic regime's own policy and strategy and the failed policy. That's how you have a separate situation. On one side, you have a government, have all this weapon military. One side, you have a civilian. They have no mobilized system, no organized. Well, unfortunately, that's a reality with the Iranian population. You have a large number of the gray zone people. They are not mobilized well, which is Iranian regime's long-term policy is the reason we don't have a mobilized people inside Iran and a strong opposition outside. Why I'm saying the Iranian regime's policy, because what they did first, they assassinate and killed all opposition leaders first years of after Iran-Iraq war. And why it happened? Because after Iran-Iraq war, Islamic regime couldn't answer or couldn't handle the situation inside the country. In the fourth side of the country, you have people asking for what they revolt for, the better life, better economy. And the Iran-Iraq war was the time they didn't have time to ask for these demands. After Iran-Iraq war, the demands increased. Islamic regime knew if they don't assassinate and kill the leaders of opposition, easily they will be challenged. What happened? Khomeini declared jihad for executed all political prisoners. You have more than 5,000 political prisoners been executed after Iran-Iraq war. And you have assassination of the Iranian opposition leaders in Europe after Iran-Iraq war. One of them was Kurdish leader, Dr. Qasemlu, who was assassinated by Islamic regime in the peace negotiation for Kurdish question in Iran. In Vienna, just a few days ago, in the 13th of July, we had the anniversary of this tragic day. So that tells you that why attacking or bringing the troops in Iran is not the scenario that U.S. facing. What U.S. needs to just support the Iranian people, and I don't want to use that word, but the eliminating or attacking the regime's core power, like Khamenei and RGC commanders. That's how you're giving the people the power, the support to uprise, to revolt against this regime. If you ask me, okay, we had 12 days of the war against Iran, why it didn't happen? Why didn't people didn't come out of the street and protest? First, you have to know during the war, no one will have a protest when you have still fighter jets over your sky. First, what you do as a human, me and you, we both know we will try to find shelter to be safe first. So then we will wait to see how it will calm down in our benefit or against our benefit. If they didn't do the ceasefire, but eliminate Khamenei or continue the war with a different circumstance, after that, I'm sure we would have the people outside the street in Iran. The first day after ceasefire, what people were worried, they said they left Iranian regime as a wounded snake that will come back and take a revenge on us. That's exactly what we say and happens. The first day after ceasefire, Islamic regime executed 3 Kurdish activists in the false claim that they are Israel's spy working with the Mossad. And interesting, these 3 political prisoners were arrested 2-3 years ago. I mean, even not new, not during this war. And then they arrested more than 700 people. They say, oh, they were Mossad agents. So these arresting activists inside Iran, executed them, started the day after the ceasefire was declared. Why the regime did that? To scare people, to say, Israel or America don't have this plan to change the regime. We're going to stay in the power. And if you talk, you will end up dead, prison, and executed by this regime. Scaring people, that's been the Islamic regime's tool. But if the U.S. support this regime change in Iran, supporting the people, I'm sure the people will have a more courage or more. They have to come together, be more organized for changing the regime. And if you ask me, sorry, I keep asking you questions. I'm sure you have in your head. I'm asking myself to answer your question. So if you ask me how that's going to happen, I've been working on this, as I told you, with this strategy, how the regime can change, how to support people. In military aspect or military strategy, I do believe if all Iranian opposition groups, which they are not really strong, not really mobilized, organized well, the only Iranian opposition that they are organized, they have a military mobilized too, are Kurdish opposition groups. And if US or other countries trying to help Iranian and support Iranian, they have to encourage the opposition party to join the Kurdish opposition parties and have this coalition in the Kurdish region of Iran, which you don't have just political party, military power, you have a people inside of Iranian Kurdistan that easily can be mobilized. That's been shown in the last March 21st. If you check all the video and the photos from the March 21st, the Nowruz New Year of the Iranian and Kurdish people, you will see for the first time the large number, more than 1,000 people on the street and celebrating New Year as an act of the protesting against Islamic regime. So the Kurds are the grassroots people in the Kurdistan region are ready. It's not gray zone. So that's how, if you liberate one part of Iran that are Kurdish region, you can have this all opposition coalition. Why I'm emphasizing an opposition coalition? Because if you have just only Kurdish forces doing that, Iranian regime will say, okay, these Kurds are separatists. They're trying to declare independent Kurdistan. They are not caring about the Iranian. But if all opposition supporting the Kurdish side, Kurdish region of Iran, they can liberate that part. And now you can state province by province, liberate the country from Tehran power. That's not the first time. Even we had this history during the Iran constitutional revolution in 96, when it first started from the Bakhtiari side, from the north, from Tabriz side, when the power of this constitutional revolution, they marched to Tehran. It didn't start from Tehran because the base and the mobilized power was there. So I do believe that's the best military strategy if you want to if you want to ask how this change can happen.
Well, I certainly hope that you're successful in changing the regime. That is, I think it's in the world's interest for the theocracy to go down the rabbit hole of history. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your comments. And with that, I say thank you for watching us. This is being recorded and will be shown in the near future. So please keep the American Security Council in your thoughts. Our website is www.ascf.us, and please donate. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your input.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.